to, yeah, just keep on looking at what teams we've got featured here. And there is a Colossal. That was one of the big Pokemon we were kind of talking about throughout the course of the regional qualifiers. And here he is in the grand finals. Colossal has won the last two Players Cup, and at first people were joking, hey, what if it wins the third Players Cup grand finals? And after we saw 4 of the 16 teams from the regional qualifiers have one, I was like, maybe it's actually a possibility that it can win. So let's see if Roberto can actually pilot the Colossal to another victory here in the third Players Cup.
Of course, to get that victory, it is going to be going up against a Sun team, one of the ones that we have featured quite a few times already here, with that Charizard, Venusaur, of course, that Groudon to set the Sun, Regieleki, that oh so pesky Umbreon, and a Grimmsnarl as well. So, I mean, it's going to be really cool to see how the Colossal pilots against this team for Roberto to try and make that Players Cup 3 dream of Colossal making it alive.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the matchup on paper, Colossal obviously looks very good here. Now, the one thing Colossal typically wants to watch out for are super effective ground and water type attacks. Groudon and Venusaur both potentially have those in ground type attacks, especially Groudon, right? So Groudon feels like the main max option on the opposing side. You're gonna want to protect that as well as possible. Ideally, conserve it to a point where you can get a Max Quake and just one-shot Colossal. Because if Colossal, gets too many max moves off in this game, it really just feels like it can sweep through completely. So something like leading Groudon can at least put on a little bit of pressure against it if you're expecting the Dragapult Colossal lead or the Urshifu Colossal lead. But yeah, I mean, Colossal teams are really strong, especially in Series A, because you have that flexibility. Not only is Colossal so strong right from the start, Zacian, such a good late game sweeper as well, can often clean up the games once Colossal has distributed the damage with the first couple of max moves.
Yeah, Rafael, though, surely has a good game plan going into this. As you said, Colossal was a team that we saw a couple of players bring, and certainly the players did have to sit and really think about how they're going to stop Colossal from taking yet another victory. So that being said, let's get into this match here.
And my first question is always, do you lead Colossal? And the answer for that question is yes, here it is. It's just going to be Urshifu and Colossal immediately up against the Grimmsnarl and the Umbreon. So, we've seen the Grimmsnarl and Umbreon a little bit earlier today. Very passive lead, but definitely can put in some work, right? You can potentially go for a yawn onto the Colossal. I think that would be a really interesting play. Looks like Rafael actually wants to double up onto the Urshifu immediately and just get that out of the way before anything. But this does give the room for Roberto to, just go for something like a Self-Aqua Jet and a Volcalit. No yawn onto Colossal also means that Colossal will be able to put on a little bit more pressure in the subsequent turns. But I like the Umbreon lead. That is rather disruptive and can put in a lot of work against both Colossal and the Urshifu here.
Oh, certainly. And we see the Urshifu actually just target into the Umbreon right out of the gate here, not opting to go for the Aqua Jet onto the Colossal, which, I mean, obviously with the Colossal, you want to be getting that speed, you want to be getting that weakness policy, but it isn't always necessary, especially if going for things like Volcalit to set up rocks, which also does a lot. Umbreon, of course, is going to hit into that Urshifu, as well as the Grimmsnarl, just looking to take it out of here. So no activation on the Colossal at all, but like I said, doesn't always need to be happening. And we are going to see that Volcalit come out onto the Umbreon, and it does hold on. However, the rock set on the field, it is going to get rid of it and take out one of the main ways that Rafael could be dealing with this.
Yeah, and last time we saw Rafael play with Umbreon lasted on the field for what felt like an eternity, right? So Roberto does not want to deal with the Umbreon, knows that it can snarl, knows that it can yawn, so just gets it out of the way immediately. Really like the play from both players on turn 1 to just eliminate what they think is going to be a really major threat. Zacian comes out immediately for Roberto. So this Groudon is really, really good right now, right? It does put on a lot of offensive pressure, and you're actually faster than that Colossal right now. What can be a little bit awkward is the fact that the Zacian, of course, can go for a Behemoth Blade on a Groudon. That's going to do a lot of damage, but I don't know. From Rafael's perspective, you have a bunch of different plays you can make here. I was thinking, you can go for a Thunder Wave onto Zacian, max the Groudon, and then just max Quake into either of the slots here. Colossal is scary, but not nearly as scary when it doesn't have that weakness policy set up. But looks like Rafael considering maybe going for that Sword Stance, which would honestly be a very aggressive play here. I'm not sure you really needed to do that when you have this Thunder Wave pressure as well as Max Groudon. But looks like, yeah, he's going to go for the Sword Stance. So this could get punished really, really heavily. It's a big, high risk, high reward play.
Yeah, it can get punished, but if he gets this sword stance off freely, it could be game-changing. This Zacian, though, also looking to set up a bit and is actually going to go for a substitute here. So it's gonna start be a little difficult to deal with this Zacian, but it's going to be interesting to see what the Colossal does here. And it is going to hit that flare into the ground. It's not going to pick up the KOs since weakness policy, but I mean, this +2 on the ground, I'm surely not going to do much if it's not around.
Yeah, +2 doesn't matter if you just fade this turn, right? And so Roberto making really what I think was probably one of the safest plays as well. The substitute just covers any potential options, and now it's really, really tough for Rafael. I think, yeah, that was just somewhat of a greedy sword stance because now Groudon's actually going to end up doing nothing. The substitute actually prevents a Thunder Wave from going off as well, right? So Behemoth Blade just actually picks up the knockout onto Groudon. So Groudon came in, got his sword stance off, and basically left and said goodbye. And Groudon looked like he was in such a good position up against two Pokemon that are weak to ground. So Rafael trying to make a big prediction there, hoping to just get a free sword stance off. And you can see how good Colossal can be, right? It does not need that weakness policy like you mentioned, and actually able still to just do so much damage. And now, the last one is going to be a Charizard, but this Charizard doesn't even have Max Quake, so it's just going to easily feint to a Volklet. And sure, Charizard can do some decent damage. I suppose, Colossal's max is over, so you actually can't go for Volklet now, but Roberto still has another Pokemon in the back, and Rafael realizes there's really no way out of it at this point. You can't actually knock out the Colossal very easily with this Charizard set as well. So, I don't know. I feel like the Groudon just really didn't need to go for a Sword Dance there. I felt like it was in a position to even just click Precipice Blades. I mean, the reason to not click Precipice Blades is because you don't want Colossal to survive and then activate that weakness policy. So, I think I really would have liked to see something like a Thunder Wave and a Max Quake into that Zacian slot, because not only do you slow that down, I guess the only fear is if your Groudon has no speed investment, maybe you don't outspeed the Zacian anyway, but regardless, you get a special defense drop, you're still faster than the Colossal. I feel like that Sword Dance was, just a little bit greedy, and in the end, it gets punished very heavily. I mean, that turn basically ended the game instantly.
Yeah, there's two huge offensive pressure out on the field with that Zacian and the Colossal. You have to start dealing with them, and unfortunately a Sword Stance deals with neither of them. And I mean, maybe he's going for a read there that there's maybe some protect, predicting the Max Wake, or trying to be one up ahead of his opponent there. But unfortunately, Roberto just making the safe play there just absolutely cleans up that game right there on the spot. So definitely not what you want to see for Rafael, but certainly not a mistake to be going into this game 2 here.
Yeah, so let's just get right into the second game. I mean, I think the leads worked out well for both players. At the end of the day, Groudon just needs to actually do something, and I think you really want to Dynamax that. So let's see if there are any adjustments being made this time around. It's going to be the same leads from both players. And it's all about, once again, positioning. Can you put yourself in a position to just knock out Colossal effectively? Because a Colossal, even without the weakness policy and Steam Engine combo, really still sweep through in that last one, impressively enough.
Yeah, Rafael, started with the idea of taking out the Urshifu again. I mean, considering how the last game turned out, I feel like a Yawn or something could be interesting if you know that Urshifu's not going to bother going for the Aqua Jet. Instead, it's going to this turn, but no max on the Colossal. So this Colossal is going to get that weakness policy, is going to get that speed boost. It does take a really nice chunk of damage, of course, not being maxed, but it's just going for a big heat wave here, dealing about half health to both of these Pokemon.
Yeah, and I actually really like the decision to not max Colossal there because, like you mentioned, there might be a mix-up, right? Maybe Rafael does decide to just go for a Yawn, and now this time around, without that close combat defense drop, Urshifu actually survives the turn as well. So it feels like Roberto in a really good position right now. Sure, Colossal's taking a lot of damage, but you can still go for a Gigantamax onto it, right? And you can get that Volklet off. That should just pick up a knockout here. And this Umbreon just kind of in an awkward spot. I like the decision to try to go for Thunder Wave here. It's actually going to target the Urshifu, try to prevent it from just getting an attack off this turn. You can obviously just try to eliminate the Urshifu. I don't know. I feel like I'd like to see Thunder Wave onto Colossal here just so that it can, you can deal with the full para chances. But I guess what Rafael's going for here is he doesn't want to just lose both of his Pokemon immediately. Either way, that's a nice play by Roberto turn 1, and even though Colossal's taken so much damage, it's not at risk of getting KO'd this turn, so it's a great time to actually max it. Now it's looking even more threatening than that last match.
especially having the speed this time around. Even if it's so low on HP, doesn't matter if it's low, if it can just KO everything that hits the field with that extreme speed engine. Is going to go for that Vocalith onto the Grimmsnarl there, pick up that KO to start, and set the rocks damage, which is going to be doing a number on Rafael's end of the board here.
Yeah, in the end, the Thunderwave Foul Play combination does come out and knock out Urshifu before Urshifu can effectively KO the Umbreon. So I mean, at least you get rid of the Urshifu. Now you get a free switch in and can go into the Groudon. But I feel like one thing that makes this really tough is that if you want to use Groudon, you're typically going to want to max it, right? And Zacian plus Colossal with the weakness policy and the Steam Engine activated, it just makes this so tough. Because if you bring out Groudon and you don't max it, well, it's just going to faint to a max flare plus Behemoth Blade. But if you do max it, well, Behemoth Blade just does double damage, right? So the max flare plus Behemoth Blade might just knock out Groudon anyway. So it's like, what can you actually do as a max option in this game right now? And Colosso, in the last game, Roberto didn't even need to activate that weakness policy and Steam Engine, and now it's activated, right? And sure, its HP is pretty low, but it's not at risk of getting knocked out right now. And the Umbreon is just in a really weird spot where it's not putting on any offensive pressure. At best, you can yawn. That buys you a turn, maybe. But other than that, Snarl, Foul Play, it's not really going to be doing enough. And even though Colossus at +2 attack, I really don't think Foul Play is actually enough to pick up the knockout here. So absolutely agree with the yawn decision onto Colossal. I think that, gives you a slight fighting chance. But it's looking really scary because every Protect that you make also means that you take that chip damage from Vocalith. That adds up really quickly when you're not maxed.
Yeah, it's certainly one of those things. All of these Pokemon with the super strong G-Max moves with this residual effects makes it really punishing for Pokemon to start playing slower, play a little more passive. But regardless, the Groudon will go for the Protect and is going to take a pretty big Max Flare through that regardless, which, I mean, that is never what you want to see. The Zacian, of course, hit into it as well. So it gets to stick around another turn, but after the rocks damage, that is a healthy amount of damage done to it, and neither of these Pokemon are in the best of positions, though Rafael this time did bring the Venusaur in the back instead of Charizard, which be interesting to see how that shakes out if it can stand up against these Pokemon at all.
Okay, so Groudon going for the double Protect here is actually going to able to get it 2 times in a row, so that will allow it to, take less damage here, but Rafael ends up just going or eating up the Max Flare on that Umbreon anyway, so even with that double Protect, I don't know, how much do you really get out of it? It does keep you in the game, for sure, so Rafael identifying, hey, I need to do this to even stand a chance, and this is, Rafael was in a really tough spot in this match specifically. Like, I think in the last game, there was a little bit more breathing room because there was that Grimmsnarl for Thunder Wave, but this time around, you have at least put the Colossal to sleep, and with that double Protect, Groudon sticks around, so definitely a closer matchup for sure. Colossal is asleep right now as well, so not really able to do anything the subsequent turn. Now it's really about the Venusaur, and big question here is who do you end up maxing? This Venusaur, can easily go for a Sleep Powder onto that Zacian. Looks like it actually has that Weather Ball as well. And so, you could actually max Venusaur and just go for the max Weather Ball into Zacian because the sun is up. That actually turns it into max Flare. But it looks like Rafael actually wants to mix it up and max the Groudon rather than the Venusaur. I was thinking, Venusaur could maybe pull off this endgame, so I'm actually kind of surprised to see the Groudon max here. Now it's going to be very dependent on what Roberto's last Pokemon is, and it's always scary if I don't think regular Weather Ball will just KO, and if you miss a Sleep Powder with the Venusaur, that could be absolutely critical here in this endgame.
Yeah, I feel like missing the Sleep Powder at this point just loses the game on the spot, whereas maxing and trying to take out that Zacian would give you a better chance, especially with the sun up. The Venusaur is going to be pretty fast out on the fields here, but Rafael seeing the value in this Max Quake instead. It all comes down to this Sleep Powder here. The Zacian, though, just opting to Protect in its stead, not wanting go to sleep yet, like its buddy Colossal here. So, this is going to be really interesting. I'm really intrigued to see what Roberto's last Pokemon in the back here is.
Yeah, let's see. Either way, Rafael definitely putting up a hard fight in this one. I think that double protect on Groudon was absolutely huge, because if you don't get that, I think the game is instantly over. But Rafael also, you know, had the ability to recognize, hey, I need to go for a double protect right now, because if not, that's it. That's my tournament life, and I'm out of the tournament, right? So the main thing is, like, when you max Groudon, it's already taken so much damage, and the Gmax vocal damage is also adding up. And so it doesn't feel like it'll survive for more than one more turn. It's going to be Landorus here for Roberto as their last one. I feel like that's a really good option here, because you get that Intimidate onto that Groudon, so it does less damage. And I'm not sure how much damage Venusaur can actually do into the Landorus here, so that's a really perfect fourth Pokemon for Roberto to have. And yeah, it looks like Rafael wants to go for that Sleep Powder. It's going to be a really, really big gamble, because if you miss, that is just game over, like you mentioned, Sierra. So let's see. There it is! And it misses!
Spoken into existence. The Venusaur is not able to hit that Sleep Powder, and this Zacian is free to just go for a huge Behemoth Blade. Just take that Groudon completely out of this match. I mean, that was such a big miss there. I mean, I feel like that was the last opportunity for Rafael to bring this one back, and the Landorus to sitting here and just setting up with a Swords Dance. I don't think there's anything to be done at this point. The Sleep Powder last turn was the one thing that needed to be done, and now that that option is exhausted, I feel, yeah, Rafael recognizes that as well and is going to hand this one off over to Roberto here. Wow, what a Colossal's just